Hey everybody, Ben Nelson, the Everyday Real Estate Investor here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Everyday Real Estate Investor podcast, where we talk about strategies and tips and tricks and tactics and all those things to be able to get out there and be involved in real estate investing, even if you are busy in other things. And we talk to people that are out there doing it and interviewing them and figuring out how they're making that happen and integrating real estate into their life with so many other things going on, family, professional business, all that stuff. So we don't want time or any of those things to get in the way of us being involved in real estate investing. It's a great and powerful tool to build wealth and financial freedom. So that's what we're about. That's what we're talking about. And we're talking about ways to make that happen in your own life. So thanks again for tuning in. We've had some great interviews over the last few weeks, talking to some great guests who've had a lot of awesome insights about the market and just sharing from their experience. So really appreciative to everybody that's been on over the last few weeks. And we've got some more coming up, so stay tuned for those. But today we're going to get back to, I'm going to talk a little bit from my own experience here and just share some things. And today we're going to talk about making assumptions and how you can miss opportunities when you're doing that, because it's really easy in your mind. And so a lot of this is going to be mindset, right? Going back to mindset being a key piece of success. And a big part of that is in our head, we make assumptions. We think things, we think people are going to do certain things or respond in certain ways or have certain answers to questions. And we don't even ask the question half the time. We just, oh, this is what's going to happen. This is what they're going to say. This is how this is going to turn out. So we don't even do it, right? Stop doing that. Okay. I do it. I still do it. I still struggle with it. And so I'm continually trying to improve that in my own life. Fortunately, I've gotten past where I was in the past. I've grown a lot in that area, but still a ways to go. So we're all improving and a work in progress. That's something I'm always working on and reminding myself that I need to ask the question, that I need to, put things out there. You need to be talking to people and proposing things. Otherwise, you just don't know. So I'm going to basically go through 3 different examples of deals that I've done and things that I've been involved in, where if I would have made an assumption and stopped there, then there would have been no deal. And these all turned into great deals. So hopefully you learn from these. Hopefully these inspire you to go out and look at things from a different angle. Maybe ask questions that you wouldn't normally ask, and give yourself the opportunity to have something come together and have a yes when there wouldn't have been if you didn't ask the question, right? So first deal, this is my very, very first deal. This was a small deal. I started, if you've listened to some of my prior podcasts, I started really about as small as you can. A manufactured home in a manufactured home community on leased land. It was a remodel, needed a bunch of work, and I got it for very, very little. So the big thing here, the main thing here is when there's not a deal on the surface, stop wasting your time on it. That's kind of the premise of this one. This one was really easy to approach and just kind of look at where things were at with the seller, what they owed on the property, how much work it needed, and how much money needed to get invested in it, and in the end what it was going to be worth, and the cost to get it there. So just running the numbers, it didn't make sense. So hey, there's no deal here, right? So the thing is that if you start digging a lot of times, and you start having conversations, a lot of times you uncover other motivations and other opportunities to make things work and put things together and actually get the seller where they're wanting to go and create a deal for yourself. So this one needed a lot of work. Like I said, the seller owed more than what the current value was as is, and it needed a lot of work to get it. Now this was 8 or 9 years ago, something like that. And manufactured homes are worth a lot more now than they were then. But we're talking it's worth $35,000 or whatever when you're done. So not a lot of money, right? Very, very low entry point, at that time. But the seller owed more than the current value, plus it needed work to get there. And in the end, it was worth, $35,000-$40,000. So again, it was easier to say, hey, there's no deal here. This is a waste of my time. But I listened and I had a conversation, and basically where the seller was at was just for personal reasons, she was done with the property. She needed to move on. She needed an easy solution. She didn't care about the money. She knew the house needed a lot of work. She needed something that was simple. Hey, can you take this on? Can I move on? That's all I want to know. And she, in the end, offered to. She basically said, I'm planning on paying this off. I'm just going to pay it off. And I ended up paying her something for it, but she was ready to just pay it off and just kind of walk away. So I did pay her for the property, but she ended up paying off the difference is what happened. And so I could have really easily said, hey, this person knows way more than the property's worth. There's no way I can make this happen. But just a little bit of conversation and just really being caring and trying to understand their situation and listening to what their needs were, I was able to hear the needs of the seller and what they were wanting and what their expectations were. And in the end, they paid the difference, but they felt like I did them a service by taking on this project, this house that they had lived in and now needed to move on from. So, it's really easy. People like look at these scenarios a lot of times, I think, and it's, oh, you're taking advantage of people. You're doing that. No, I'm not taking advantage of anybody in those. And yeah, there are people that do that and they try to convince people that their property is worth less than it is and all of that stuff. I'm simply performing on what they've offered and what they need, and it's, making that happen for them, getting them where they need to go. So they put out a proposal that made a lot more sense than what my first expectations were, and we were able to make it work. And in the end, she was happy, and I got a deal, and we put it together. So if there's not a deal on the surface, just stop looking. That's where you sometimes have to do a little bit more digging, and you have to have that conversation. Now, there's a balance to this for sure, where you're not going to make every opportunity a deal. There's not a deal in every opportunity, right? Because seller circumstances or there are all sorts of factors, right? So you don't want to force a deal. You don't want to take one property and be like, I got to make it. I've done that before too, by the way. And you've heard about that one on the podcast where it's like, I've got to make this into a deal. There's a deal here. And then you create something that's really not a deal. And then you're going to pay for that down the road. And you could put yourself in a position to lose money or not perform on the deal or just waste a lot of time. So there is a balance to it, but just remember to, you don't want to spend too much time in try to force something that's not there, but you can take a little bit more time and hear, we're not don't be a shotgun approach. I'm just going to write offers at X% under market value and see who bites. So like people do that. That's fine. That's not how I approach my business. And so it takes a little bit more time. You talk to maybe a few less people, but you have a better opportunity. You're going to have a better batting average because you're actually listening. You're not passing on things by just blanket, cookie cutter putting out there one formula. You're actually trying to understand and do a deal detective and dig into what a seller situation is and what they're needing and all that stuff. And so you're going to find and uncover opportunities by doing that. So spend a little bit more time, do some more digging, and you're going to find some opportunities. Okay, the second one here. This one is kind of similar in the sense that it requires that patience, right? So this one is the assumption that once you miss out on a deal, you got to move on and move on to the next one. Now that's not necessarily a bad philosophy. Like, you don't want to dwell on something that you missed out on. You want to move forward and find the next one. But you can always keep tabs on deals because sometimes things happen. And one of the properties that we have, we put an offer in early on. This property needed a lot of work, and it was well priced, bank owned. And we got outbid on it. We weren't willing to pay what someone else was willing to pay. And in this, we kept tabs on the property though. We watched it, and it actually came back on the market 3 or 4 or 5 times. I don't even remember. It was multiple times. And every time that it came back on, I was reaching back out. Hey, I saw this came back on. What happened? This was a listed property, so I was talking to the listing agent. So, hey, what happened? what can I do to, like, I'm a serious buyer, I'm going to perform on this, I've already done some due diligence, what can I do to get in on this? And we got outbid a couple times, and I did set it aside for a little bit. We didn't offer every single time, but eventually it fell through, I think, the fourth or fifth time. And I just, and this was like 6 or 7 months later, and I just called the agent and I'm like, look, here's what we're willing to pay. It's fallen through a whole bunch of times. I've already done I've already had my contractor out to take a look at it. Like, if the bank wants to sell it, we're gonna close. We're gonna close. I guarantee it. I don't need any inspections. Like, let's get this done. Let's close it. And hey, they've had 5 sale fails. They want to get this thing sold too. The bank's tired of it. The listing agent's tired of it. Let's just get this sold. So, in the end, there was a little bit of competition, so we adjusted our offer a little bit, but we ended up getting it. We ended up getting it for pretty darn close to what our original offer was 6 months prior to that. So we stuck to our guns. We didn't get caught up in the bidding, and we knew what numbers would work for what we needed. And we missed out on it the first couple times, but in the end, it came back around and we got it, and it's been a great property, and put a bunch of work into it, and it's been a really good property. So don't give up. Keep your eyes on deals. Keep in touch with sellers. Keep in touch with listing agents, whoever you've been talking to during that scenario. Things happen. Deals fall apart. Buyers don't perform. Whatever, things just happen in sales, and so it's not a bad idea to keep tabs. If something's a really good deal, stay on top of it. Make sure, hey, is it still heading towards closing? Are things looking shaky? What's going on? Let them know you're still interested, so that way, if it falls through, you're right there to pick back up and go after it again. So, a side assumption here was this is kind of a sidebar on this particular deal, which is the assumption that what you see is what you get. This is, and what you see is all there is to it. And a big part of why people passed on this property is because all they saw was this one building, this one single family home that needed a bunch of work, and they were looking at it from the perspective of trying to fix it up and flip it. And so there was some things that this property, it wouldn't have penciled that way at the time. Now, this was, I don't remember, years ago. So obviously now there's tons of equity, and it would have worked for them if they would have been thinking longer term. But for a short-term flip, it didn't make sense. And that's how they were looking at it. So that's why it kept falling through. I'm sure is because people were like, they got under contract. Hey, these numbers work. They did their due diligence, found some things wrong with some bigger items. This doesn't work anymore, and they backed out. And I was looking at it from an ARV perspective because I wanted to refinance back out of it. I didn't want to sell it. I wanted to hold it and get my investment back. So I was looking at what is it worth now, and what am I going to have to put into it? Just in a different spin. I wasn't looking at it as a resale. I was looking at it as, can I pull my cash back out of it and keep it? But the other piece was people missed that you could add another unit, and I know this because I know that they weren't looking at those numbers, but I also know because I had many people drive by during the project when we were building the other unit and say to me, oh my goodness, I looked at this and I did not know that you could do that. Which was kind of funny, but it was a lot of fun because I knew from the beginning that was part of our bigger plan on that, and we actually ended up doing it a little bit sooner than we thought we were going to, which was great. But yeah, I mean, knowing expandability and knowing what's possible and knowing zoning and all of those things, those nuances, you have to know what the possibilities are. That's part of your due diligence. And you got to think outside of your box of like, hey, this is just a fix and flip. Look at zoning. Look at what's allowed in the zone. Look at what you can do. And this was like a no-brainer allowed use to add this other unit, but nobody saw it. So that's not a pat on my back for myself. It's just hey, open your eyes, look at the opportunities that other people are missing, because that's how you find value is by finding and seeing what other people are not seeing. So just a sidebar on that. Once you miss out on a deal, move on, is that you got to see what other people don't see too, right? Okay, last one. I love this one because we live in this house. So this is they'll never go for this, right? The assumption of, they will never go for this. They will never accept this offer. They will never accept this proposal. Why would they do this? There is no reason that they'll say yes to this. So what do we do? We don't ask, right? Because we've already decided in our head, if I ask this, they're just going to laugh at me. Or they're going to say, I can't believe you asked me that question. Of course not. No, I'm not going to do that. And we miss out on so many opportunities when we don't ask the question. And this was one of them that we would have missed out on. So this was a home. It was an estate. It was vacant, had been vacant and neglected for a long time, needed a ton of work, was in a price point where really people didn't really want to buy something that needed a ton of work, except for people like us that have done that on multiple homes and do lots of remodels, so we're used to it. It was on the market for, I think, 6 or 8 months or something, multiple price reductions, all that stuff. So we got it under contract. Like we liked what we saw. It needed a ton of work, but we saw the potential, and we got it under contract. And then this was right as COVID was just kind of taking over the world, or shutting it down was more like it, right? So got it under contract. This is a transition from our other primary residence, so we had to sell that to make this happen. And then COVID shut everything down. My wife was laid off from her job. Temporarily, fortunately, but we were no longer financeable, right? So one of us was out of work. We needed that income. We needed to sell it. Like, we have question marks on if we can sell. They already took a contingent offer. We have to sell our house, and now we're in the middle of this. Like, we have no idea what's going to happen in the world and in the market. Everybody's nervous. Is our house even going to sell right now? Right? The real estate market, I mean, in that summer took off like crazy, but in the spring was like crickets. It was really quiet because people were just sitting back, not sure what to expect. Lots of jobs were lost, all of that stuff that you guys know. So what it came down to was our only option was to throw out a would you consider scenario. And so we asked them, and in our conversation, so our only option was seller financing, basically. We short term, like, hey, would you finance this for us for a year? Let us fix it up. We'll refinance it when it's done. It'll be worth more, obviously. Your collateral is the property, so if we bail on you, we've improved the property for you. And hey, was this something you consider? Now, and this was an estate. They wanted to wrap things up. It had already been on the market forever. It was a low, from our perspective, it was a low likelihood yes. Very, very low likelihood yes. Like, why would they do this? This is outside of the box. This is, we got to convince the agents. We got to convince, then they've got to go and talk to, which that's the first challenge a lot of times is a lot of agents aren't even willing to hear that. So fortunately, these agents were very open to that idea, that it was a good idea for this property. And so that having them on our side with thinking this was a good idea, that was huge. And then ultimately the seller said, hey, this is worth considering. So, but our conversation before we were sitting there, I remember on our couch, and we're like, this is crazy. Like, we felt like this property was for us. Like, there was a lot of reasons, that we felt like this property was something that God had brought to us. And we're just like, okay, well, this is a crazy question. They're not going to say yes to this, but if we don't ask, we'll never know. So we asked the question, and they said yes. And man, I mean, it was a wild ride after that. I mean, the house needed a complete remodel, tons of money poured into it. But it's been awesome because that has actually turned in the ability to bless another family. And I won't get into the details of all that, but it's been awesome. And here's the thing is it got the seller where they were going. It was a question that we thought was the answer was going to be no. So what's the big deal if they say no? If they say no, I mean, we didn't have any other options anyway. So why don't we just ask the question?
If they say yes, which they probably won't, then awesome, let's move forward. If they say no, then we've not lost anything, right? So that's the big thing to take away from that scenario is if they say no, so what? You already weren't doing whatever you were asking for, so you haven't lost anything. We feel like we've lost this big thing, or we were rejected, or like, we were turned away, and all of these things when someone says no to a proposal, when really nothing's changed, nothing's different. So we didn't have whatever we were asking for, we didn't have it before, we don't have it now, nothing's different, but we had the possibility of having a yes. And there's 3 scenarios that turn into yeses when they could have been no questions even asked, right? And there's 3 amazing deals that we wouldn't have had, including the house that we live in right now, which is amazing. And we were able to use it to bless another family, and it's just been an incredible blessing to us. So, God puts things in your path to test you and to see, are you going to, so he can put things in your path, and he's going to give you opportunities, but it's up to you to take advantage of those opportunities. You have to be the one to ask the question and to put yourself out there and to take the risk and all that stuff. So an opportunity in front of you is nothing if you don't try to go after it and take advantage of that. And the other quick note I want to say is you not taking advantage this is very personal in this one, is that you not taking advantage, and taking advantage of is the wrong maybe phrase, but you not moving forward or trying something or going after an opportunity could be missing out on a blessing in your own life, but it also could be missing out on the opportunity to bless somebody else, whether that's a seller that you're helping get where they want to go, a family closing up an estate situation, a family with a place that they need a place to stay. There's so many different scenarios out there, and we think really about only our own side of it a lot of times, and we really need to think, how is this helping them? That's what our goal should be. Our motivation should be, how is there an opportunity to help the seller get where they're going, help the owner get where they're going, and still create an opportunity for myself, and everybody wins, right? We're not in this to take advantage of owners. We're not in this to swindle someone out of a property. We're in this to create solutions that are going to help people, and that in the end it helps us get where we're going as well. So not exactly where I planned on ending my podcast here, but I think all of that is super important. Again, it's mindset. It's just remembering that this is a people business, and we're buying real estate, we're buying property, we're buying buildings, but really the crux of it is people, and finding a way to align what they're needing with what you're after. That's how you create deals. So don't make assumptions, ask questions, go out there and be bold, and you're going to find opportunities that you did not know were there. Again, listen, because that's how you ask the right questions, is by listening to the person that you're talking to and what their needs are, and then you can unpackage that and you can ask a question that is going to be in line with where they're trying to go. So hopefully this has been helpful to you, hopefully inspiring. Go out there and ask some questions today that are maybe a no, maybe even a high likelihood of a no, but could be a yes. And I promise you, if you do that every day, you're going to get yeses, and you're going to get yeses that are going to change your life. So thanks again for listening. Until next time, this has been Nelson, the Everyday Real Estate Investor. Make it a great rest of the day.